You here today and to the ladies on the couch, and we're going to be back on Monday at noon Eastern. If you could kindly join Abby and I on the 5 today at 5 p.m. Eastern, it will be fabulous. And now to my favorite, Harris Faulkner.
Thank you, Kimberly. Fox News alert. Breaking developments in the Russia investigation. A judge has ordered former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort to jail ahead of his trial. I'm Harris Faulkner. Let's go outnumbered overtime on this Friday. A judge has revoked Manafort's bail. It happened a short time ago after special counsel Robert Mueller slapped him with new charges of witness tampering. Doug McElway, live at the U.S. District Court in Washington now, Doug. And what was the judge's reasoning for revoking bail and detaining him at this point?
Harris, our Supreme Court reporter, producer, I should say, Bill Mears, was in the courtroom at the time all of this happened and has provided me with some of his copious notes. He knows what he's doing, and so I will read from some of his notes as this transpired. Judge Amy Berman Jackson told the court that she really struggled with this decision over revoking Paul Manafort's bail. She said she could not, though, turn a blind eye to the allegations if these allegations proved to be true. She said that it shows obvious intent towards witness tampering when he was ordered not to tamper with any witnesses, and she chastised Manafort's filings in court that were delivered last Friday when this indictment was first handed up. He's been treating this whole thing, she said, as if it were just another marketing exercise. She said that she was unpersuaded by the defense argument that there was no list of current or future witnesses whom he could not contact. That's the argument that the defense made today. She noted that the day after the second superseding indictment, he allegedly made calls to several potential witnesses. I want to delve a little bit more into that because it's absolutely key to this case. The indictment, which was delivered on Friday, reads that Mr. Manafort and his co-defendant Konstantin Kilimnik knowingly and intentionally attempted to corruptly persuade another persons D1 and D2 with intent to influence, delay, and prevent the testimony of any person in an official proceeding. A little bit more detail on that. It's very convoluted and it's deeply into the weeds, but it's key to Paul Manafort being held in a jail cell as we speak. He's accused of witness tampering. In effect, Mueller accused the two of calling, texting, and using encrypted messaging last February to contact two people from an organization called the Habsburg Group, a European lobbying group that Mueller alleges was trying to influence United States politicians to promote the interests of Ukrainian politicians who had close ties to Russia. So that's basically it. In a court filing last Friday, Manafort's defense attorney said that these new charges lacked any merit. And they said, quote, in their court filing, the text messages cited by the special counsel do not establish any witness tampering, and that Manafort's limited communications cannot be fairly read either factually or legally to reflect an intent to corrupt or to corruptly influence a trial witness. The judge just didn't buy that, revoked his bail immediately, sent him to some detention center we know not where of. But that's where things stand right now, Harris.
Well, and I know you're reading those court documents for the first time, too, and we're going to pull away and let you really get into it so we can simplify some things. Doug McElway, thank you very much. The latest on Paul Manafort. We'll bring you more as it breaks. Now this, President Trump making big headlines on this Friday, unloading on the heels of that bombshell DOJ internal watchdog report, calling it, quote, a horror show, and accusing the FBI of total bias as he spoke with reporters outside the White House just this morning. The president also reacting to the news that the Inspector General uncovered new text messages or more text messages between the infamous FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, who were also part of special counsel Mueller's Russia investigation, also having an affair and also perhaps having some bias in their text messages against the president. He says the Inspector General, quote, dropped the ball by concluding bias did not ultimately impact the FBI's investigations. Watch.
I mean, when you look at Peter Strzok and what he said about me, when you look at Comey, all his moves. So I guess, you know, it's interesting. It was a pretty good report. And then I say that the IG blew it at the very end with that statement, because when you read the report, it was almost like Comey. He goes point after point about how guilty Hillary is. Mm-hmm. And then he said, but we're not going to do anything about it. The report, the IG report, was a horror show. I thought that one sentence of conclusion was ridiculous.
Peter Doocy, live at the White House now with more. Peter?
Harris, President Trump told us that he believes the results of this investigation into the Clinton email investigators shows that there was a culture of political bias within the FBI that was created to help the Clinton campaign and hurt his own.
I think that the report yesterday, maybe more importantly than anything, it totally exonerates me. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction. And if you read the report, you'll see that. What you'll really see is you'll see bias against me and millions and tens of millions of my followers. That is really a disgrace.
This Inspector General's report did not probe the Trump campaign's actions in the run-up to the election. However, the top Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, believes the 500 pages of findings will be used now as a springboard by the White House to advance the story.
What does this all mean going forward? We know that in the days ahead, the president and his allies will try to twist themselves into pretzels and try to use this report to undermine the special counsel and the Russia probe. Unfortunately for them, nothing in this report lays a glove on special counsel Mueller or the ongoing Russia probe.
Democrats are also using this report to beat up on James Comey, the former FBI director who was found to be insubordinate when handling the Clinton email probe. Lawmakers on the Hill are saying his actions helped get President Trump elected. Comey himself says on Twitter, "I respect the DOJ IG office, which is why I urged them to do this review. The conclusions are reasonable, even though I disagree with some. People of good faith can see an unprecedented situation differently. I pray no director faces it again. Thanks to IG's people for hard work." And this morning, President Trump did draw a line between Comey's FBI, which he says plotted against him, and the FBI in general, which he says has a lot of excellent people working for it.
Well, and he went on to say, Peter, as well, that he has faith in the man that he supports in that job now, Christopher Wray, for taking the Bureau forward in a much better fashion. Peter Doocy, thank you very much. I want to bring in now Republican Congressman Bob Goodlatte, the chairman of the House Judiciary. Always a great time to see you. Right now, let's break into the breaking news if we can. I read your statement after the report came out, and you said that it confirms that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton received special treatment from the Obama Justice Department during its investigation. How does this, first of all, I want to just get more words from you on that.
Well, Harris, first, it's great to be with you and your viewers. But the fact of the matter is this report is laced with a recounting of how this investigation was conducted by Director Comey and others in the Bureau that show a number of times where they bent over backwards and certainly did not treat her the same way they would treat a normal average citizen who is being investigated for a crime, including the astonishing practice of having her top aides in the room with her when she was interviewed by the FBI, people who are also potential witnesses in the matter. So it's a serious problem. I'm glad the Inspector General has confirmed what a number of us have been saying for a long time, that the contrast between, he didn't say it this way, but I'll say it this way, the contrast between how the FBI handled this case and how the FBI has handled the so-called Trump-Russia collusion is striking in its difference. And you look at the bias of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, Peter Strzok being one of the lead investigators in both of these matters for a time, truly sets that out. And we didn't get until yesterday the full text of Peter Strzok saying to Lisa Page about Trump's possible election. This is in August of 2016 when no one thought he would be elected. "We will stop it."
Stop him from becoming president.
That's right.
That was among the batch of revealed new text messages to the rest of us in the IG report. Chairman Goodlatte, you mentioned the Russia investigation. The president talked very strongly today that he feels that the indications of bias and so much that we've learned from the IG report indicate a difference in that investigation. Perhaps exoneration is the way he sees it. What impact do you think that the IG findings have on the Russia probe?
Well, I don't know that they have a lot directly on the Russia probe. As I say, there's a definite contrast between how that Russia probe began and how the Clinton investigation ended. Remember, that probe began based upon a lot of very spurious information about so-called collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, including documentation that came from Democratic sources and not disclosed to the FISA court when they sought warrants to surveil some peripheral characters in the Trump campaign who had an interest in Russian policy, but still to this day, no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and yet it goes on. Now, there are other people who've been charged with crimes, and if those crimes can be proven, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, but any United States attorney can handle those matters. They do not go to the core assignment of Mr. Mueller, which is to look into whether there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
I want to dig a little bit deeper, because the report also has text messages going back and forth among at least 5 other agents at the FBI whom now are pulled into this investigation. And one of those, just to tell you how incendiary some of these text messages are, and you know from reading the report, apparently one of the agents called the president's supporters, quote unquote, retarded. This was nasty kind of stuff. What do you see going forward? I know you're going to have a joint hearing next week with the IG inspector, with the Inspector General, rather, Horowitz. Talk to me about where you think we are with, now it's widening. There are more people, not just Strzok and Page.
Well, we are going to continue to pursue this until we get at the truth, and I'm pleased that the current FBI director, and I was glad to see what President Trump said today as well. It's important for everybody to recognize that there are tens of thousands of great men and women in the FBI who every day work hard to keep us safe, fight crime, and keep us prevent terrorist attacks. They've been besmirched by a relatively small but growing number of people who've been identified, and we need to follow that to their source, and the FBI needs to continue to clean house. Some of that's already been done. The director's gone, the deputy director's gone, a number of other people have been gone. The ones we've identified, we're going to continue to question. We have been asking for Peter Strzok for quite some time now, and we've advised the department that if they do not produce him shortly, a subpoena will be issued by me very shortly to require him to come in and testify. Wow,
there is so much to talk with. The IG, House Judiciary and Oversight Committees meet on Monday. I think that's when you're meeting next week.
Ours is Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Okay, thank you for
Monday,
that.
We're Tuesday. Yep.
All right, thank you for that. Let's talk immigration. President Trump's comments earlier today caused at least some confusion, some are saying, for House GOP leaders looking to hold votes on 2 separate immigration bills next week. We know one of them spearheaded by you, and the other considered a little bit more moderate measure. Here's the president on the matter.
Looking at both of them, I certainly wouldn't sign the more moderate one.
What does the bill have to have in it?
I need a bill that gives this country tremendous border security. I have to have that. We have to get rid of catch and release.
Does that mean the wall?
We have to have the wall. If we don't have the wall, there's no bill.
Chairman Goodlatte, reports immediately after the president spoke this morning that you might take another look at that before you put it in front of him. What's happening with immigration?
Well, first of all, I am obviously a fan of the bill that I've introduced along with Mike McCall, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, and Raul Labrador, chairman of the Immigration Subcommittee, Martha McSally, chairman of the Border Security Subcommittee. That's a very good bill, but it didn't get to 218 votes after months of work on it. So I've been very heavily involved in this second consensus bill that brought together people from all the corners of our conference to negotiate a very good bill. I'm expecting to see clarification from the White House, maybe even from the president himself, regarding what he said this morning, because that consensus bill has not, I think, we've been working with the White House on it, but I don't think it's been fully vetted with him yet, and it contains all of the things that he mentioned in that interview that were important to him. All of the pillars, including a better provision regarding the funding for the wall and border security, because it has a trigger mechanism attached to it. The DACA provisions, which are very fair and reasonable DACA provisions, do not move forward if the funding for the wall does not move forward. And that's good.
Chairman, is there too much amnesty in the bill?
No, I don't think so, because both bills allow people who have been brought here unlawfully by their parents to remain here legally, and the circumstances in both bills are very, very similar for that. In the first bill, we allow existing pathways to citizenship, meaning if you married a U.S. citizen, they could petition for you and so on. No special pathway, but there's also not a special pathway in the second bill, but there is a new program that we use, the elimination of the visa lottery program, 55,000 green cards, very, very detrimental, wasteful program, in my opinion. And we use that to create a new merit-based program, which people are allowed to apply for, the DACA recipients, but also other people in similar circumstances who are legally present in the United States, but don't have an opportunity to move forward, brought here by their parents. So we don't think it's a special pathway. We think it's a very fair solution to the problem.
Were you surprised by the president's comments? Do you think you'll get this done real quickly?
I must say I was not expecting to hear that when I got up this morning, but I do think that further dialogue and further discussion will move us forward toward finding a solution to this problem. It's really important that we do so. We have to shut off this discharge petition, which is a very bad way to move forward and would result in a very unbalanced bill that the president and I would definitely not want. And in addition, we need to address this problem before the Supreme Court comes back with a decision later this year, and this is the time to do it.
All right. Chairman Goodlatte, thank you very much. Appreciate your time on several topics. Always have a great weekend.
Thanks, Harris.
So we know what Republicans are saying. You've got the chairman there. What are Democrats saying? I'm going to bring in a lawmaker next after the commercial break to talk all about the news that's breaking this hour. You heard him talking about immigration. They thought they were close. He was surprised to hear with the more from President Trump earlier, voicing support for FBI Director Christopher Wray, saying he's doing a better job than his predecessor, James Comey.
I think Christopher Wray is very different from Comey, which is what you need. You need different. You need like the opposite. And he's moving step by step. And you're going to see a whole new, very proud FBI. I think Comey was the ringleader of this whole, den of thieves. It was a den of thieves.
The president did not stop there. He had plenty more to say about James Comey.
What he did was criminal. What he did was a terrible thing to the people. What he did was so bad in terms of our Constitution, in terms of the well-being of our country. What he did was horrible. Should he be locked up? Let somebody make a determination. Look at all the dishonest things that crooked Hillary did. Look at what's gone on.
Just minutes ago, I talked with House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte, whose committee will question the IG Michael Horowitz on Tuesday. Let's bring in Democrat Congressman Denny Heck, a member of the House Intelligence Committee now. Great to see you, Congressman.
Thank you, Harris.
I think when you look at this report, I haven't heard a lot of Democrats say that there's a political ground to stand on. The facts are what they are. What do you make of the fact that we've now seen more text messages between two agents that not only were having an affair at the FBI, but certainly had some thoughts about this president not ending up in the White House?
So, Harris, first I think we ought to step back and frankly just give thanks for the fact that there is an Inspector General's office.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is that we are all very well served by having an independent cop on the beat who doesn't care what I think or you think or President Trump thinks, but cares only about getting at the facts. Secondly, I think when we look at this IG report, all 500 and X number of pages of it, there's plenty of something in there for everyone. President Trump, obviously, as he is wont to do, and Republicans celebrating the fact that it was acknowledged that Director Comey engaged in missteps and insubordination and therefore gave him a basis for discharging him, a rationalization and a justification. Democrats, on the other hand, can look at it and the conclusion that they found zero, absolutely none, zip, nada, evidence that bias affected the investigation and its conclusions. So I think there's something for everybody. I actually think we ought to move on. I think we ought to move on to substantive issues.
I know you want to move on.
I want to compliment the president, Harris, if I may, who sent up Kimberly Reed to be chair of the Export-Import Bank this week to the Senate, so that we can have a fully functioning Ex-Im Bank and create jobs and export.
I see the swing that you're doing, and I love dancing myself, but we're not going to dance right now. We're going to go back to the Fox top story, and the top story all over the place right now. The Inspector General came out, and now not only are there the two people, the agents who were there at the time, going back and forth with text messages, having bias against this president according to those texts, but now you have a widening circle up to 5 people. And the president was careful not to impugn everybody at the agency, at the FBI, but he said, you know, look at the bias in this. You cannot deny when you call President Trump supporters, quote unquote, and this is in the report, this is not my word, retarded. Now, while the IG found no evidence of bias affected the specific investigation actions reviewed previous to July 2016, he doesn't have the same confidence, this report, that the delay in reviewing, say, Anthony Weiner laptop emails in the Hillary investigation was free from bias. So you say there's something there from everybody, but there's bias there anyway.
And the bias was found not to affect the investigation. You say this is the top story. Actually, if you turn the channel to a couple of others, you'll be seeing a top story about Paul Manafort being sent to jail.
We started with that. You didn't catch the top of our show.
The bottom line is this report finds that there is no evidence that bias affected the investigation. Period. Full stop.
What do you think affected this investigation? What do you think motivated somebody like a James Comey to be insubordinate? What do you think motivated these people to say that they didn't want President Trump, then candidate Trump, to be in the White House? If it wasn't bias, what was it?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the issue of what motivates James Comey. Eris, I will acknowledge freely that I'm not entirely sure. I'd like to know what, in God's name, motivated him in October of 2016 to go public and indicate in contradiction to the norms of the FBI and the Department of Justice that he was reopening the Clinton investigation as a consequence of that computer. I'd like to know what motivated him to do that. There are a lot of people, a lot of political scientists looking at the numbers and the data who believe that actually made a difference in the outcome of the election. But Harris, Donald J. Trump is president of the United States. It's where we are. It's where we go from here. Period.
All right. Congressman Heck, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We will see what happens with all of this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The trade war was started many years ago by them, and the United States lost. We lost $500 billion in trade deficits last year. We can't do that.
President Trump earlier defending his decision to slap tariffs on goods from China. China says it will immediately impose penalties of equal strength. Stocks under pressure, the Dow dropping triple digits amid concerns about a trade war, perhaps. Let's bring in Charles Payne. Love the show, making money. Weeknights, catch it 6 p.m. Eastern on the Fox Business Network. Okay, so where are we with the Dow right now? We're down about 202. Is this because of the idea that we're going to slap those tariffs on China?
Some of it is. There are other things going on. The strength of the dollar yesterday spiking, central bank accommodation. The Federal Reserve's putting something and slowing down the economy. So there are a whole lot of factors. It's interesting because you have two schools of thoughts. A lot of people thought the market would be down a whole lot more if Wall Street was really concerned about this and thought it would derail our economy. By the same token, we knew it was coming. And this,
so it's kind of baked in?
It should have been baked in for sure. Anyone who doubted President Trump at this point that he would do something, I think they keep making a mistake.
Is China, okay, so we've been looking at Canada and the EU, but China is actually in direct line with where the president might want to be because we're dealing also with North Korea.
Yeah, that's played a major role. And
intellectual property theft that China has been known to do also playing a role.
Well, they have a couple things. They've been able to grow their economy dramatically, in part because they have a country, they have tariffs already in place that are significantly higher than ours. They've been able to protect industries. There are a whole lot of our biggest companies don't
Haven't
do
they
business
stolen
there.
A lot? Don't they cheat?
Well, they have stolen hundreds of billions of dollars worth of intellectual property. And so there are two parts to this tariff. One part covers about almost half of the things President Trump talked about in early August. The other part, though, they're still investigating. So it's not $50 billion yet. On July 6th, it'll be $34 billion. But the other part is more interesting in the sense that it comes under that Section 301. These are things that go directly towards China's admitted goal of dominating the world, including the United States. China 2025 program. So we're looking at aerospace, information, communications, robotics, industrial machines, new materials, autos. Those are things we're looking at, and we'll probably know more in mid-July, late July, where we go with that. But this is certainly a two-pronged thing. Unfair trade. Well, we've already been in a trade war. The President Trump's, he keeps telling people, and we've lost that trade war. This is a way of trying to get rebalance, get China to open their markets, and by the way, get them to stop stealing our stuff.
Yeah, I cut you off. There were two things. What are they?
Well, the one thing is the market reaction, I think, is benign, so that's good news. And I also think that this whole thing with China retaliating, I just think it's all part of the negotiating process. I think we took a big step closer to getting this thing ultimately resolved today.
Charles Payne, making money.
Thanks a lot.
And as our viewers like to say, making sense, because they quote me on that, because I say it. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
Fox News Alert now, the president is defending his historic meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, saying that regime has been making progress.
You haven't had any rockets shot up in the air for 7 months. You haven't had any research. They just blew up their test site. They're blowing up their engine test site for ballistic missiles. He gave us back our hostages.
Christian Whiten is a former Trump State Department senior advisor under President Trump and a senior fellow at the Center for the National Interest. You know, it's interesting. The president's still talking about why it was a good idea to have the summit, and we're moving on. I mean, there are things. Secretary of State Pompeo is having new meetings, South Korea. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is, I mean, the American people and all of our allies have all said this is a great thing, too. It's just, frankly, Trump's irreconcilable opponents who think it was a bad idea. And the results are already showing. As the president mentioned, they stopped testing nuclear weapons. They stopped testing ballistic missiles. They returned 3 American hostages. They stopped testing rocket engines. And they agreed to disarm. Now, still a lot of things that have to be resolved and worked out. But clearly, this is a different path for North Korea and looking pretty good.
You know, the timetable now becomes really critical because I don't know if people will remember, but less than a year ago, it was then CIA Director Mike Pompeo who told us how close North Korea might be to those nuclear weapons. So when we talk about denuclearization, what is the timetable right now?
Right now, Secretary of Pompeo has telegraphed that he wants this done in the president's first term, and I think that's good and realistic. If you look at other times that countries have disarmed, those programs were a lot more simple. North Korea has a complex plutonium and uranium project. They have bombs that have been assembled. They have ballistic missiles. A lot of that stuff, including spent fuel, will have to be removed from North Korea. And that's going to take time to work out all of that. But, you know, that's a pretty good timetable to be on, I think.
Christian, what do you see is maybe the biggest obstacle right now in going forth in terms of our allies?
You know, not really. I mean, there's not a problem with our allies in the Pacific. The people who are, you know, have to face this threat most directly, Japan, South Korea, Australia, our key treaty allies are all very much on board. You do have a left-wing government in South Korea that in the past has been very prone to appeasement and to believing North Korea when they shouldn't be believed. But so far, the president has managed to keep them on side.
Real quickly, if Kim Jong-un, and he says he's accepted the invitation, comes to the White House, what does that do to the negotiation process in terms of legitimization?
I think it moves it along. That's the key part of this that differentiates it from the failed, you know, adventures of previous administrations is engagement at that senior level. So this keeps it going and makes sure that there still remains a meeting of the minds between the leaders, which is crucial.
Christian Whiten, always great to have you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harris.
The DOJ Inspector General taking James Comey to task for his handling of the Hillary Clinton IG report, that there was no evidence that political bias affected the FBI decisions in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. The president also voicing support for FBI Director Christopher Wray, saying he's doing a better job than his predecessor, James Comey, whom the president is characterizing as the ringleader of the, quote, den of thieves. Joining me now, the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fenton. And of course, Judicial Watch is known for trying to get things like those text messages, and you've been FOIAing all along. And we got new information. What stands out to you in that IG report about bias at the FBI?
Well, when you have the lead investigator in both the Clinton email investigation and for a time the Trump-Russia investigation saying that he wanted to stop Donald Trump from being president, it doesn't get much worse than that in terms of showing bias by the FBI. And now the circle has expanded into additional FBI investigators and lawyers on that team, both in the Clinton email and Trump-Russia investigation. Look, both investigations, Harris, have been irredeemably compromised by that bias. And just because there's no direct evidence, and the IG was being careful and lawyerly here, there's plenty of circumstantial evidence that bias infected the analysis, bias affected the the steps taken and what steps they chose to take, both aggressive against Donald Trump and very careful with Hillary Clinton. It's just magical. All these decisions that prosecutors in the Obama Justice Department and the Obama FBI came up with that fell down on the side of Hillary Clinton, while at the same time operating, we now know, a spy campaign against the Trump campaign in league, literally in league, with Clinton Fusion, with the Clinton DNC paid for Fusion GPS team.
Right.
Unbelievable. The same group were making decisions in both cases.
Let me stand in and step in, rather. You know how much of a field day that attorneys will have with the phrase that you used over and over, circumstantial evidence of this. You know, that the thinking is that look for the actual evidence. And isn't there some? I mean, haven't we just learned that they're calling them agents 1 through 5 now, these other people they want to look at who were at the FBI, who were text messaging things as incendiary politically as what we saw between Strzok and Page?
Well, you know, this is not a legal decision. This is a political issue. The American people should look at this report, see how they bent over backwards to protect Hillary Clinton, and then look at these text messages and draw their own conclusions as to whether their anti-Trump, pro-Clinton bias impacted their decision-making. They didn't want to go after Huma Abedin's emails. They didn't think much of the fact that Clinton's people had lied to them repeatedly. At least one IT official lied to them at least twice, but said it was okay because he told the truth the third time. Can you imagine anyone in Trump world getting such deference, Harris?
I want to step in and just quickly say, Chairman Goodlatte, House Judiciary, on a little while ago said that, basically echoing what you're talking about, that there was special treatment for Hillary Clinton in that email investigation. The Democrat that I had on, Congressman Denny Heck, though, said that there's something in here for everybody, and he has no idea what other reason James Comey would have. You know, it wasn't bias. It must have been some other reason. Your thoughts?
Well, there's something in there for Hillary Clinton to the extent that James Comey was willing to throw her under the bus a little bit in order to defend his reputation and his, quote, institution from the obvious charges of corruption that were going to be leveled as a result of treating her with kid gloves. So while Hillary Clinton was ultimately protected because of corruption in the Justice Department and the FBI, James Comey, in order to make himself look good, violated her rights by attacking her in the press conference.
Tom, I got to bring you back. Democrats and Republicans agree on those last few words you spoke. Nobody is in favor of James Comey. Thank you very much.
Well, and it shows that President Trump was right to fire James Comey because of the way he was treated and the way he treated Hillary.
You get last word. Thank you.
Thank you.
With the immigration debate reignited now on Capitol Hill, the Trump administration is exploring new options for detaining migrants who have crossed the border illegally. The president is speaking out
about separating the families, and that's a Democrat bill. I hate the children being taken away. The Democrats have to change their law. That's their law.
So the president there talking about Democrats having the policy of separating children from their parents after they illegally cross the southern border into the U.S. Meanwhile, the president also causing confusion a bit for House GOP leaders who want to hold votes on 2 separate immigration bills next week, saying today he will not vote for the compromise bill, the text of which lawmakers just released last night. Remember, we had Chairman Goodlatte on earlier, and he said, yeah, they're taking another look. Power panel, Lawrence Jones is the editor-in-chief of Campus Reform. Jessica Tarlov is the senior director of research at Bustle.com, a Fox News contributor, and the author of America and the Age of Trump. Great to see you both.
Yeah, thank you.
I often just nickname you Big Law from Texas, and everything's, you know, taller in Texas. I want to start with the president taking now a look at, and we can do it in reverse order, a look at immigration and causing a bit of a stir on Capitol Hill.
Well, I think the president has been willing to compromise on this issue. He offered amnesty. That's something that a lot of Republicans and a lot of strong conservatives were against. But I do think that, you know, with this kid situation, it's a tough position. I mean, we don't want kids being this way, but there's often kids in America that suffer because of the crimes of their parents. They're put in difficult situations.
You're hearing about these detention camps.
Yeah.
Right. Lawrence, what do you make of that?
it sucks. It looks bad.
Oh my goodness.
It does. I don't know how to say it. It's a bad condition. I think the administration can find a place for these children. That doesn't mean giving them amnesty, but we can take care of them in a responsible way.
So, Jessica, this brings up the question of if we can quell at the border the flow. And we did, because even the threat of policy changes, we're keeping some people from coming in. At least that's been the estimation of the reason why. We're seeing a little bit of a tick up, though. Sometimes in summertime we'll see that.
Right.
So why wouldn't Democrats take a look at a little bit more conservative of a bill that says, now we're going to, attach money to the wall. We're going to look at our visa situation?
I think that they should if they can get a bill to them. But what's going on right now is GOP infighting with the Freedom Caucus having 30 members, which I think the Republican advantage is only 23 seats. So they're not going to be able to get something through, which is why Paul Ryan said, please let me get a compromise bill out there, which had funding for the wall. It also had a pathway for DACA. And Paul Ryan said yesterday in his press conference that they wanted to look at the separation of families, which is fundamentally a law that was started a while ago. Actually, it was Bush, and then it was under Obama. But the new zero tolerance policy under Jeff Sessions is actually what has caused the spike in this. So I think that both parties should focus on the reunification of these families. And if that means that they're getting kicked out of the country, that's one thing. They did cross the border illegally. But it doesn't look good for anyone, and it's not American. It's not how we do things.
I
have
don't,
children in
go ahead.
cages.
I totally agree, but I don't like the children being used. And I think that's what Republicans have a problem with, the children being used to further this amnesty conversation to grant citizenship. It's obvious why the president was historic by saying anchor babies. Why do they do that? And I think the Democrats, if they really want to see this done, they would go with the president's bill.
But the president doesn't
Jessica?
have a bill right now.
I'll bring you guys back.
Okay.
Thank you. We've got a lot of breaking
Deal.
news today. Coming up, our special weekly series called Heroes on the Home Front, where we honor the brave men and women who serve our nation and their families who also...
Dana Perino, big news of the day. Paul Manafort is going to jail. So what happens next? We'll explain. Plus, Peter Doocy joins us from the White House with that wide-ranging, incredible interview with President Trump this morning and some very big cases coming up Monday at the Supreme Court. My legal panel and I will tell you everything you need to know. It's all coming up next on the Daily Briefing.
Part of our show now. We look forward to it on Fridays until the July 4th week, called Heroes on the Home Front, where we spotlight the men and women serving our nation and their families here at home. We ask them to share their stories as proud Americans. And today we introduce you to a young woman engaged to a staff sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps who is currently finishing his 11th year in service. He started when he was 18, and he has been deployed in Bahrain for the past 6 months and has about a month and a half or so left to go to come home. To Christina Anderson, who's here with me now. She and her fiance, Bill, are set to get married in September. Wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are about to marry into the military life and already getting a taste of that, I understand.
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
Well, I didn't expect a deployment so soon in our relationship. We've been together for 2.5 years, and we actually got engaged. And the next month, he said, I'm going to be deployed. And I didn't expect it so soon, but I learned a lot really quickly with him being away, how things work, and really learning the strength that's within me that I didn't know was there to do what I needed to do when he was away.
So you're about to become what I call the family that serves along with the Marine or soldier or sailor. And that is a tremendous responsibility because, and you and I were talking off camera about how quickly you grow up, and we're looking at some of these pictures. You both suffered a loss right before or right during his deployment, and that maturation process was quick. You didn't have each other to get through the deaths that you both had opposite sides of your family, a grandmother and a grandfather.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very challenging. Bill lost his grandmother, I lost my grandfather. It was just hard not to be able to rely on each other's presence, to console each other in that time. I'm very fortunate that I had his family close, and of course mine.
Yeah. We're looking at some of these pictures. There's one in particular. Let's talk about the lighter side of life now, but it's gotten a little complicated. You had a sign up that said 100 days until the big day, and you're planning this, there it is, you're planning this with him being gone. That is the norm for military families. Somebody's deployed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I learned that I'm not alone throughout this whole process. There are other people that are experiencing the same thing as me. That's why I posted that picture, and I've seen a lot of other couples online, which is very helpful and supportive. Girls who are going through deployments like I am, and to learn that I'm not alone is really, really helpful.
Yeah. You know, I want to ask you real quickly what it is you love about military life, too.
I love the camaraderie. I love, well, the strength. I've learned a lot about strength and resilience, and it's taught me a lot about how to be adaptable to life. Life throws a lot of things at you, and this experience really taught me that.
You were engaged to Bill Pennewell, a staff sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps, currently serving his 11th year, as I mentioned.
Yes.
You guys are going to open up a whole new chapter.
Yes.
Get some special forces in your life, those people around you who have that commonality, because I know you're living off base right now. You'll need that.
Thank you
Christina
so much.
Anderson, thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we'll bring you, you'll be part of our Proud American campaign on social media, of course, and share pride with our video, photo, and status on Facebook. So we want to hear